Everybody loves talking about Black fatigue, but funny how nobody mentions who created the conditions they complain about. If you're tired of the truth being twisted, stay right here, because today we expose the hypocrisy behind this narrative. Too often, when people talk about the Black community, they reduce complex social realities to simple formulas, as if human lives operate like elementary math problems. If A happens, then B must follow. Poverty becomes proof of laziness. Crime becomes evidence of inherent dysfunction. A single negative encounter becomes the blueprint for an entire population. In this kind of thinking, a Black person who grows up in a low-income neighborhood is automatically assumed to be criminal or irresponsible. A predominantly Black zip code is treated as synonymous with government dependency or failure. There is no consideration of nuance, individuality, or circumstance, just snap judgments disguised as logic. This way of thinking feels neat and easy, but it's dangerously shallow. It's linear thinking masquerading as insight, the idea that social issues have one direct cause and one inevitable result. Never mind history, public policy, generational wealth disparities, housing segregation, targeted policing, or systemic exclusion from opportunity. Linear thinkers don't engage with context because context complicates their worldview. It forces them to acknowledge that oppression didn't end with a single piece of legislation, and success isn't solely determined by personal effort. Instead, they cling to the narrative that everything is purely cause and effect at the individual level, as if millions of people just coincidentally made the same mistakes across centuries and continents. In their minds, there's no legacy of redlining, no discriminatory lending practices, no school funding gaps, no wage disparities, no judicial bias, no media stereotypes shaping perception, and no trauma passed across generations. There is only the surface, and whatever assumptions they want to project onto it. And that kind of thinking doesn't just oversimplify. It erases. It erases the fullness of Black humanity, the diversity within Black culture, the complexity of Black experiences, and the institutional forces that shape life outcomes. Unfortunately, this narrow-minded perspective doesn't exist in isolation. It has a platform, and it has spokespeople. Every era has its megaphones, individuals or pairs who build their identities around reinforcing stereotypes or validating prejudice under the guise of telling hard truths. Enter figures like the HodgeTwins, who have found a profitable niche repeating talking points that align neatly with racial bias. They package themselves as brave commentators unafraid to say what others won't, when in reality they often recycle narratives that have existed since Reconstruction. The problem is Black culture, Black choices, and Black behavior. Nothing more, nothing less. You give people like that a microphone and an algorithm willing to amplify outrage, and suddenly their commentary becomes a kind of pseudo-intellectual reinforcement for those looking to justify their discomfort, frustration, or outright disdain toward Black communities. Their delivery is often comedic, exaggerated, or wrapped in humor, which makes the message easier to swallow or easier to hide behind. It's just jokes. We're just being real. We're saying what others are afraid to say. But repetition has power. Familiar messaging gains traction. And eventually, comedy becomes ideology for those already inclined to believe it. Then there are the collaborators, individuals outside the Black community who co-sign or amplify these ideas because it validates their perspective. Take someone like former fighter Jake Shields. He may not always posture as explicitly hateful, and he may deny prejudice outright, but the patterns in his commentary speak for themselves. His rhetoric frequently leans toward dismissing Black grievances, minimizing structural inequality, and positioning Black communities as the root of their own issues. It's not always shouted, and it's not always crude, but subtle prejudice can be more insidious than open hostility. It wears a mask of reason, accountability, and logic while quietly reinforcing centuries-old narratives. When someone repeatedly comments on Black culture with a tone of exhaustion, superiority, or resentment, when they constantly point fingers but never extend empathy or curiosity, that tells a story. And even if they never use explicit slurs, even if they couch their statements in facts or statistics, their commentary often circles the same tired orbit. Why don't they fix themselves? Why don't they act different? Why can't they do better? as though centuries of structural barriers, state-sanctioned violence, and systemic exclusion never happened or no longer matter. This dynamic creates a feedback loop. Black commentators reinforce harmful stereotypes. Non-Black commentators repeat and amplify them. Audiences use those voices as justification for their beliefs, saying, "See? Even they say it." And suddenly, a narrative rooted in bias and oversimplification gains legitimacy through repetition, not truth. All of this ignores a fundamental reality. The Black community has never been a monolith. It contains scholars, entrepreneurs, activists, artists, scientists, athletes, innovators, and leaders, as well as the everyday people who work, raise families, pursue dreams, and navigate life like everyone else. Yet linear thinkers collapse all of that diversity into a single image, often shaped more by media portrayals or isolated anecdotes than lived understanding. It's easy to blame people you don't truly see. It's easy to judge a community you refuse to understand. And it's easy to criticize conditions you played no role in addressing, or that your worldview refuses to acknowledge as rooted in anything other than individual fault. Real thinking, meaningful thinking, requires expansion, not contraction. It requires asking uncomfortable questions about power, opportunity, history, and responsibility. It requires acknowledging that inequality didn't magically dissolve just because laws changed. It requires recognizing that people adapt to the circumstances available to them, and that those circumstances are not always fair or equal. And above all, it requires humanity, the willingness to see Black people not as symbols or stereotypes, but as individuals shaped by forces much larger than any simplistic equation can capture. If society wants progress, it has to start with honesty, not selective honesty, not performative honesty, but real honesty rooted in historical memory, empathy, and social awareness. Otherwise, the conversation remains stuck in the same loop: oversimplify, stereotype, blame, repeat. And when that happens, we don't move forward. We only reinforce the very divide we claim to analyze.
It's good to have these conversations, though, because it's like, it's not good for Black people either. I don't know why Black people have sheltered these people for so long.
I don't think they give a shit, to be honest with you. Look like they would, they pay the price, though.
What stands out here is the contradiction. He openly acknowledges that a portion of his audience holds racist views, yet claims they simply have questions about Black people. Then, in a sweeping generalization, the HodgeTwins jump in with the idea that everyone is racist, just that white people supposedly get singled out for it. Let's be real. People can have biases, preferences, or misunderstandings about groups outside their own. No one's denying that. But if you say your goal is to understand and support Black people, then turning to individuals who already hold negative, prejudiced views doesn't make sense. That's like saying you want to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights, but all your guidance comes from people who openly dislike LGBTQ+ folks. How is that genuine engagement? It isn't. If someone truly dislikes a group, Black people, white people, Muslims, trans people, whoever, the logical thing would be to simply keep your distance and stop obsessing over them. But instead, many of these voices stay deeply fixated. That's why discussions about Black issues are constantly popping up on channels that are steeped in racist ideology. Their fascination isn't about learning or improving anything. It's about reinforcing their own prejudices while pretending it's curiosity.
Yeah, it's like Black communities are so destroyed. Like, I just seen Cam Higby. He's doing what Charlie Kirk was doing. He went on HBCU campus, and those Black people ran him off campus.
He frames it as a positive thing, having these conversations, as he puts it. But here's the issue. You're trying to discuss so-called Black fatigue, yet neither you nor the HodgeTwins live in Black communities, build relationships with Black people, or invest in Black spaces. You're talking about a group you openly criticize and have no real intention of supporting, all while claiming concern. That's the contradiction. When people like the HodgeTwins speak on being tired of Black issues, what usually follows isn't insight or genuine engagement. It's complaints and accusations with zero understanding of the broader social, historical, or economic contexts that shape those issues. Instead of learning or offering solutions, They throw out judgments from a distance, disconnected from the very people they claim to be discussing.
Racist, and I know y'all have been told this is racist, but it's not. It's not racist to call Black people out for their behavior and what they're doing to society at this moment. I'm glad people are noticing this because it's been so many years and it's finally catching up to y'all. I've been trying to tell y'all that white people are tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all too, but everybody, the world is getting sick of y'all and y'all's bullshit. I'm so glad this day is here.
In this clip, we see Cam Higbee, yes, the same guy who showed up at Tennessee State University. Some people try to spin his experience there into a clean equation. He went to an HBCU, students reacted, therefore Black people are hostile, and that's why white people or white supremacists talk the way they do. But reality is rarely that simple. Higbee has a pattern. He shows up places stirring tension, provoking reactions, and filming the fallout. At TSU, he wasn't invited, had no clearance to be there, brought his own mic and speaker, disrupted campus activities, and clearly hoped to provoke a heated response. That context matters. This wasn't a thoughtful debate attempt. It was a planned confrontation for views. Yet when these conversations happen among people already leaning toward anti-Black narratives, they ignore context entirely. They turn situations like this into proof of some larger character flaw in the Black community and call it Black fatigue. Then we see others amplify this sentiment, claiming they're simply calling out behavior, insisting it's not racist to say the world is tired of Black people. They frame their frustration as honesty, not prejudice, celebrating the idea that contempt toward Black communities is finally socially acceptable. What's interesting is that this mindset mirrors the same shallow logic used by the HodgeTwins. White people are tired of Black people, and it's all Black people's fault. That's linear thinking again, no history, no nuance, no system analysis. Just blame. But it's worth remembering there have been moments when even some of these critics stepped outside their echo chambers. Jake Shields, for example, once debated General Yana of the Hebrew Israelites, a figure on the far opposite side ideologically. Shields admitted openly in that conversation that Black Americans were wronged by white society. He acknowledged harm, but then immediately shifted to the narrative that Black people should simply pick themselves up and fix the situation on their own. General Yana responded with his own solution. If America truly wants Black people to move on and stop demanding equity, then hand over land proportional to the Black population, 15% of U.S. territory, allow Black people to form their own government, and they will go build their own nation. It's an extreme proposal, yes, but it exposes a truth. Many who complain about Black presence in America don't actually want Black people to leave or build separate power. When ideas like reparations or community restoration are brought up, the response is always no. And that's the contradiction. If you start a fire in someone's home and only agree to rebuild half of it, you don't get to lecture them about fixing the rest by themselves. You didn't restore what you damaged. So yes, some Black individuals hold negative views about portions of white society, and some white individuals hold negative views about Black people. But what you cannot reasonably do is cause harm and then complain when the consequences appear. When people deny the historical and structural role white society played in destabilizing Black communities and instead blame Black people entirely for present-day struggles, that isn't honesty. It's selective memory. If dysfunction exists, if marriage rates declined, if certain social conditions worsened, pretending white policy decisions and historical oppression had no role is not just inaccurate, it's morally dismissive. You created part of the environment you now criticize. And let's be honest, the way this conversation is framed isn't just inaccurate, it's ethically questionable. People sit online all day complaining about Black fatigue, acting as though Black communities are a burden to society. But history matters. There was a time when Black communities had strong self-sustaining neighborhoods, formal dress culture, economic stability, and the civil rights push, and even then, many white Americans rejected that progress. We saw hostility toward Black advancement, Jim Crow laws, and mass migration not because life was great for Black Southerners, but because they were fleeing injustice, only to face discrimination again in the North, Midwest, and West. So now, after centuries of unequal treatment, the same society that undermined Black self-determination criticizes the effects of the inequality it manufactured. And when someone like Jake Shields acknowledges wrongdoing, yet still complains about Black fatigue, the contradiction is glaring. You admit you contributed to the damage, yet you resent the aftermath. Meanwhile, certain Black voices, like the HodgeTwins, join that chorus, eager to make white audiences feel comfortable about the role historically played in dismantling Black progress. If someone dislikes Black people, that's their personal preference, but the idea of complaining about Black fatigue while benefiting from the very system that disadvantaged Black communities is hypocrisy. Then comes the discussion about separation. When someone proposes the idea of giving Black Americans 15% of U.S. land, proportional to population, critics suddenly fall silent.
Why?
Because America benefits enormously from Black talent. Sports, entertainment, science, the military, where Black Americans make up roughly 20%, and countless other areas are strengthened by Black contributions. Without that labor, creativity, and cultural influence, massive gaps would appear. And many know it. Instead of acknowledging that interdependence, they complain about fatigue. Yet they would never apply this logic elsewhere. After World War II, imagine telling Jewish survivors, go back to Germany, coexist with those who brutalized you, and prove your humanity for the next 100 years. That would be unthinkable. Instead, Jewish communities were supported in building a nation, and Germany continues paying reparations decades later. Contrast that with Black Americans. After slavery, there was no protected homeland, no clean break from oppressors, no reparation-based rebuilding. People were forced right back into systems of exploitation, from Jim Crow to redlining to discriminatory policing, right next to the very group that oppressed them. Even cities considered progressive, like San Francisco, now acknowledge the historic harm they inflicted. So how can a group be historically wronged, denied a chance to rebuild independently, forced to assimilate, and then blamed for the resulting social consequences? Calling that Black fatigue ignores the obvious truth. The fatigue many claim to feel is connected to circumstances created by the very systems they defend. If Black Americans speak English, hold Western values, watch American media, or operate in American business culture, it's because these frameworks were imposed and taught, often in schools where Black students were explicitly told they could only go so far, as Malcolm X himself experienced. Other immigrant groups came here by choice, with their identities intact. Black Americans were brought here by force, stripped of identity, denied autonomy, then expected to assimilate perfectly, and judged harshly when outcomes reflect imposed limitations. So when people say they're tired of Black Americans, a group with one of the most traumatic historical experiences on Earth, despite benefiting from their culture, labor, and creativity, it exposes something deeper than fatigue. It reveals a refusal to take full responsibility for the consequences of that history. And yes, some Black individuals end up rejecting their own identity because of low self-esteem forged by centuries of conditioning. That, too, didn't happen in a vacuum. The HodgeTwins claim they only refer to themselves as Black reluctantly, as if the label forces them to behave, speak, or dress a certain way. They frame Black identity as a box they don't want to be trapped in. What's telling is that you almost never hear someone say, I don't want to be seen as white because I'll be put in a box. That sentiment rarely goes the other direction. And yet, certain white audiences eat that up. They love hearing Black people distance themselves from Blackness because it confirms their comfort zone and reinforces the idea that the best thing a Black person can do is move closer to whiteness. This mindset grows from a desire for acceptance from a group that historically set the rules of belonging. So, to get that approval, the formula becomes simple. Praise white culture, dismiss Black identity, and suggest success only happens when you stay close to white influence. That's how we get statements like, white people figured everything out, or Black people do better around white people. It reflects a mentality built on dependency and social validation rather than empowerment. Then comes the contradiction. The same voices who criticize Black communities for their conditions also insist Black people stay close to the very group they claim caused those conditions. It's a trap. If Black communities struggle, they're blamed for not being independent, but if they speak about separation or self-determination, suddenly the message becomes, you need us. It's a no-win situation. engineered to keep Black autonomy in check while pretending it's about accountability or tough love. Jake shields himself admitted 4 key truths. He holds racist views, his audience does too, white society harmed Black people, and he has no real interest in helping solve Black issues. So why talk about Black fatigue nonstop? Why obsess over a community you admit you don't care to uplift? Because it pays. Because controversy around Black culture generates attention, clicks, and revenue. And that's why many of the same people who loudly criticize Black identity still date Black partners, consume Black culture, and want Black presence. Not to support it, but because it fuels their platform and gives them something to attack. They don't want Black people gone. They want them close enough to criticize and profit from, but never empowered enough to stand apart. And with that, it's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back again with another breakdown. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting, and remember, stay informed, stay aware, and always think deeper than the surface narrative. Until next time, keep your head up and keep the conversation going.